celebrate today. Very moving, very sad, but we are strengthened by the great legacy that lives 46 years later. We want to thank in a special way all those who have been narrating the story of the life of Benedicto Kiwanuka. We begin with the Honorable the Chief Justice, the Honorable the Deputy Chief Justice, the Honorable the Principal Judge, Justice Remi Kasule, President Uganda Law Society, and the family. But in a very special way, we appreciate Mr. Godfrey Lule, the efforts he tried on that day to save CJ Benedicto Kiwanuka. We thank Dr. Paul Kawanga Semogerere. As we said earlier, he was a great friend and a confidant. Indeed, we have heard it for ourselves. We also thank, in a very special way, Honorable Justice Augustine Shimi. What an inspiring story. That at the time he was an interpreter. We know his journey. So what am I saying? It doesn't matter where you are now, you can end very far. Stay focused. With that, allow me to recognize the presence of Mrs. Ruth Sebatingira, former President, Uganda Law Society, and currently member of the Judicial Service Commission. Thank you for coming. We'll now proceed with our program as planned. At this time, I have the honor to invite the Honorable, the Principal Judge, to make his remarks, and then he will invite the Honorable, the Chief Justice. My Lord, you're most welcome to make your remarks at this table. Thank you, my Lord.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, my Lord, the Chief Justice, my Lord, the Deputy Chief Justice, Honorable Minister, my Lords, retired and still serving, all our guests, most especially the family of our late judge, Osite, fellow Ugandans in the interest of time. Mine will not be a speech, will not even be remarks. It's a tribute to my predecessor. At the time of his death, he was the head of the High Court, and the Judiciary, and I'm the head of the High Court. So he is my predecessor. The year was 1972. I was still alive, with a pocket full of dreams. And believe it or not, an enviable head full of black hair. I was going for classes as an honest schoolboy in senior 2. And the yearning for lunchtime bell that would finally release my stomach from hunger pangs. I knew and thought little of the world and the pain that my country was going through. Little did I know that my aloofness wasn't to last. For in that year, I came to hear of a legal pillar that had been lost. Benedicto Kiwanuka, who had stood tall and proud, a gallant Ugandan whose sacrifice I will not forget, silenced in a manner more gruesome than any. I can only wonder whether, if like him, I would have stood firm and with the sort of conviction he displayed at that time in the midst of such torture and horror. I'm who I am because I remember. And I mourn like all that know of loss. For when a patriot falls by the wayside, I'm duty bound to honor the voices that dare to speak up, that challenged the status quo and lost everything for our country. To all those who are taken from us, and incidentally, that same year, and this can be shared with the family, that same year I lost my brother who was supposed to be going to the university. He was in New York and his body has never been seen. So it was a twin loss for some of us. You are not alone. So all those who are taken from us through intolerance or otherwise spite, you are more alive now and in our hearts. May we remember them through observance of rule of law, good governance, and accountability in all we do. And may his soul rest in eternal peace, for that, for God and my country. Allow me now to invite the Honorable Chief Justice to address the nation.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice, the Honorable Principal Judge, the Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Honorable Justices and Judges, my Lord, Chief Justice Emeritus, the President of the Uganda Law Society, members of the Bar, the family of Ben, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I wish to welcome Your Excellency, the Honorable Edward Kiwanuka, who is here representing His Excellency the President, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, to the Judiciary Headquarters. I thank you for gracing this very important occasion in the life of the Judiciary. I also welcome you in your own capacity, because I know you are a great supporter of the Judiciary, and some of us, you are our teacher at the Law Development Center so many years ago. I welcome all of you, our visitors to this inaugural memorial lecture in honor of the late Benedicto Kiwanuka, the first Ugandan to be appointed Chief Justice of Uganda. The theme for this memorial is the enduring legacy of Benedicto Kiwanuka, reflections on the past, present and future of the administration of justice in Uganda. As you may all recall, the late Benedicto Kiwanuka was on 21st September 1972 violently kidnapped from his chambers at this very High Court building and has never been seen again, presumed to have been murdered by the government of President Idi Amin. It's a grim reminder, even to me who sits in the very office, the same chair, that things can go wrong. This event was a grim pointer, if one was needed, of where our country was heading to, even at that time. Idi Amin had been killing people since his takeover of government in January 1971. Those of you around may remember people like the late Father Clement Chigundu, who was editor of Moto Publications. The late Kawajaka, who was president of the Uganda of the Industrial Court. Those people had been killed. But somehow, many people still had hope that this was a merely transient situation. We now know that the killing of the Chief Justice must have further emboldened Amin, because the killings went on and were later, as we now know, to claim the Archbishop, ministers, and so many other people. The country suffered, nobody was safe. The legacy of the late Benedicto Kiwanuka, particularly as Judge and Chief Justice, has hitherto not been celebrated, at least not by the judiciary. But as the judiciary, we finally resolved in January of this year to annually recognize and celebrate his life and achievements, not only to remind ourselves and posterity of his contribution to the advancement of the rule of law and nation building in Uganda, but to remind ourselves of what can go so tragically wrong in the country once we allow ourselves, for whatever reasons, to ignore and deviate from the path of constitutional governance. This should serve us all as a reminder that incidents like invasion of court premises to arrest people who have come to seek justice from the courts, to derogate and describe in very unpalatable manner decisions of court and court orders, to disobey court orders, to disparage judges either individually or as a judiciary. I saw a tweet yesterday on some people's forum who are saying the judiciary must be made to beg for resources. They must never be allowed to have the autonomy to do what they should do. Those things are pointers to what can go tragically wrong for this country once again. There is a singer, I think she's in Parliament, the Honorable Judith Savavidi. She has a song which goes, those little things that you do, little things that you do, small words that you say, can break your home or can build your home. Those little things that we do, and they appear little at the time when they're done, can break this country. And we can have another Kiwanuka, the Chibundus and Mubiros and so on, and all those people that died. When these things happen, it is time for us to reflect. Are we getting it right? When Benedicto Kiwanuka came to, the first time, and last time I saw him, was at Makerere University in 1971 as a first-year law student. My honorable colleague, Ambassador Olaro Tuno, was my classmate, who will remember. He came to address the Makerere law students on the occasion of the inauguration of the Makerere Law Journal. And we were all excited to see a Chief Justice. They were not as common as they appear to be these days. The main hall was full. And I remember some of the words that he said at that. And I've had occasion to check in with my friend Maurice Kajimishwanuka. Sadly, and you can imagine a first-year law student seeing a Chief Justice speak, and you are all full of hope of what it means to become a lawyer. Who had not been drunk as a lawyer, as Prime Minister, and so on. Then when we were in second year, that the Chief Justice has disappeared. It had a telling effect on all of us. So I want to ask us, as a country, all the three branches of government and all citizens, the protection of the independence of the judiciary, the promotion of the rule of law, are not things we should be begging for. These are things in our Constitution. of resources to know its mandate. And indeed the Constitution mandates all organs of the state to give resources to the judiciary to do its work. When we demand for resources from the government or from parliament, we are not begging and must never be reduced to beggars. We are not going to accept to be untwisted. We are not going to accept to be blackmailed. The judiciary will remain an independent constitutional arm of government. But that's not what has brought me right now. I'm here to invite our distinguished guest, who is going to have the main say of what we are doing today. We could not have had a more distinguished person to deliver a keynote lecture at this auspicious occasion than the evidently eminent Samuel Wako Wambusi, the distinguished elder of the judiciary of Uganda. And for that reason, allow me, in a very brief manner, because if we have to read all his resume, it may be another half an hour. The Honorable Samuel Wako Wambusi is our keynote speaker for the day. Justice Wambusi was born on 23rd January 1931, still a very young man. He attended the University of London as an external student to study law at Barham and Tooting College of Commerce. He attended the University of Howard to study law and attended Lincoln's Inn for the bar. Then he attended the various inns of court. His working experience from 1960 to 61, he was appointed a pupil Crown Counsel. I was in P5. 1962-63, he was Crown Counsel. 1963 and 1964, he was Senior Parliamentary Counsel. Between 1964 and 69, he was the first Parliamentary Counsel of Uganda and helped in the drafting of the 1967 Constitution. 1969, he was appointed a judge of the High Court, one of the first Ugandan to be appointed High Court judges. He was present here when Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka was abducted. He became then acting Chief Justice. So he knows the whole story. From then he was Chief Justice of Uganda from 1973 to 75. 75-77 he was President of the Court of Appeal for East Africa. He also served as a judge of the Court of Appeal of Kenya. 1979 to 1980 he was appointed Chief Justice of Uganda once again. In 1981 to 86, he became a legal consultant with Sebaru and Lawyer Advocates and legal consultants. Then he became President of the Court of Appeal for Uganda in 1986 and was appointed Chief Justice between 1986 and 2001. I had the privilege of being during that period Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and we worked very closely together. One thing I remember is these things we've been talking about when a decision had been made by the Constitutional Court, which rubbed us in government the wrong way. And ministers and other people came out to insult the judiciary and other things as they do. Justice Wambusi summoned me as Minister of Justice. I hope I can summon Dr. Phil one of these days. Justice Wambusi summoned me. I told him sitting in his chambers with Justice Kanyamba. I said, you are the Minister of Justice and you have a duty to protect the judiciary. We cannot go out ourselves. You must protect us. So I went back to cabinet and I think we solved the problem, at least for the time being. Chief Justice Wambusi retired as Chief Justice in 2001. He is now a senior arbitrator and legal consultant. But the importance of changing guard when so honorably, he remains honorable and available to us in the judiciary. When I was appointed Chief Justice, he was the first person I made a call on at his home to seek counseling and guidance. And I'm not surprised, my Lord, that you accepted this invitation. I have the honor and privilege to invite you.
Vice President, my Lord the Chief Justice, my Lords the Deputy Chief Justice and Principal Judge, my Lords both temporal and spiritual, my other Lords, Honorables, Your Excellencies, members of the family of late Chief Justice. I am standing here so that you can see who will be talking to you. Otherwise, I with your permission and my age dictates that I take a more comfortable position to speak to you. Constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda. The enduring legacy of Benedicto Kiwanuka. First, I thank the Chief Justice, Benedicto, for inviting me to give this inaugural lecture in memory of the first Ugandan Chief Justice of our country, the late Benedicto Kiwanuka, which has been organized by the judiciary. I'm not sure what prompted the invitation, given the many excellent choices that were open to the Chief Justice. I have wondered whether this was informed by the fact that I'm the one who succeeded Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka as Chief Justice, or whether this choice was simply fortuitous. I'm glad in a way that all the previous speakers have told you quite a lot, and which simplifies my duty a bit. So maybe I'll do a bit of paraphrasing and fishing for what may have been omitted. As you all are aware, the late Chief Justice was picked from his chambers on these very grounds by statute, by state actors of the government of the day, and to this day has never been seen alive. I still vividly recall that day, 21st September 1972, when the late Chief Justice was abducted. I remember coming to the High Court on that day and being immediately struck by an eerie silence which appeared to engulf the entire grounds. Intrigued by the quiet, I rang the Chief Registrar, Matthias Sendegeya, to inquire into what might have happened. He said, "Don't you know, the Chief Justice has been taken by security men." In shock, I responded, "Whatever for?" No satisfactory answer was, of course, forthcoming at the time. I'd also remember that before that fateful date, following Idi Amin's release of Benedicto from prison and his appointment of him as Chief Justice, the late Benedicto always sat very close to the President at all state functions. Over the time, I noticed a growing distance between the two, with the Chief Justice being progressively moved from the first row, the second, and the third, and so on. I was compelled to ask Benedicto, "What is happening?" His response was, in his characteristic reticence, I don't know. Let us wait and see. It may be opposite in this regard to ask why I succeeded the late Chief Justice, knowing that I could be the next victim. At the time, I thought that maybe the murder of one Chief Justice was one too many, and that not even Idi Amin could try it a second time. It was a poor consolation, and perhaps no security at all. But such were the times that we lived in and worked to serve our nation and its people. In the event, I would myself survive that dark period in our nation's history and go on to serve, perhaps fortuitously, as Chief Justice on 2 other occasions. It is perhaps also because of this valued position that the Chief Justice Katurebe thought I would do some justice to this most important reflection on the late Benedicto Kiwanuka's life and service and the meaning of his legacy for judicial power and constitutionalism in contemporary Uganda. It's to this task that I now turn. In my view, to truly appreciate the legacy of Benedicto Kiwanuka, it is important to understand something of his life, as well as the circumstances of his death. Only through this reflection can we truly understand the import of his legacy for our generation and those to come. The life and death of Benedicto Kiwanuka. Benedicto Kiwanuka was born on 8th May 1922, at a time Uganda was under the yoke of British colonialism. Indeed, he was born about 20 years after the establishment of the first High Court for the Uganda Protectorate, and long before any Africans would be appointed judges in that court. Benedicto would be one of the first Ugandan lawyers gaining admission to the Grace Inn in 1956. He would rise to be the Chief Minister in July 1961 and the first Prime Minister of Uganda when the country achieved internal self-government on 1st March 1962. As already noted earlier, he would also become the first Ugandan Chief Justice of our country. He played a critical role in securing the independence of Uganda and was a major figure in the early post-colonial life and politics of the nation. His political activity led to his imprisonment by President Benjamin Obote in 1969, along with many other political detainees. He would eventually be released alongside about 54 other political prisoners by Idi Amin following the 1971 coup. Amin then appointed him Chief Justice on 27th June 1971. It would appear that the immediate cause of Kiwanuka's murder was his refusal to sacrifice the rule of law to satisfy the dictates of Idi Amin. For this, Benedicto would be killed on 22nd September at Makindye military prison in the most harrowing of ways. Unfortunately, to date, neither the people of Uganda nor his immediate family have been accorded the simple and profound opportunity of being able to give his remains a decent burial. In addition to this, no arrests have ever been made, nor any prosecutions undertaken against those believed to be responsible for the abduction and murder of the late Chief Justice. The failure to provide justice to the late Chief Justice itself exposes the depths to which we had sunk as a country and continues to be a stain on our collective national consciousness. I am reminded in this regard of Genesis chapter 4, verses 10 to 12, in which we are informed that the Lord said to Cain, who had killed his brother Abel, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." It seems to me that Benedicto Kiwanuka's blood continues to cry out from the ground, asking that his death not be in vain, and that his legacy of a fearless commitment to justice and the rule of law be protected as a national trust and heritage. It is to this examination of the meaning and gravity of the important national legacy that I now turn. Kiwanuka's legacy, judicial independence in uncertain times. To my mind, the core of Kiwanuka's legacy is the need for unwavering judicial independence, even in the face of great challenges. As I have noted elsewhere, the post-independence Ugandan judiciary did not have a solid foundation in the tradition of judicial independence from the colonial period. The colonial structure envisioned and structured the judiciary as little more than an appendage to an extension of the imperial executive power. Invariably, therefore, the judiciary in the colonial period was often differential to executive power at the expense of ensuring and safeguarding the liberties of the citizen. The legacy of Kiwanuka, of judicial commitment to the rule of law in the face of impossible odds, is therefore even the more incredible and enduring given the poisoned chalice of political subservience and difference inherited from the colonial period. If this is the legacy of Kiwanuka, the natural question, I think, that arises for us today is this: if the late Benedicto Kiwanuka were alive today and he was speaking to us now in Uganda, what would he be saying to us? It is to this question that now I turn. Current challenges to constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda. I am sure that Benedicto Kiwanuka would survey the current state of constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda today and draw our attention to the matters which need our immediate attention. He would, I'm sure, then provide some possible solutions. What then is the state of constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda? Certainly, progress has been registered since the very dark days of Idi Amin, which Henry Chamber so aptly referred to as a state of blood. But are we there yet? And in any case, where should we aspire to be? In this regard, apart from the guarantees of judicial independence under Chapter 8 of our Constitution, we can look to international and regional standards regarding judicial independence and the administration of justice. In particular, the African Commission at its 19th Ordinary Session in Burkina Faso adopted a very strong resolution on the respect and strengthening on the independence of the judiciary. In this resolution, the African Commission requires African states to, 1, repeal all their legislation which are inconsistent with the principles of respect of the independence of the judiciary, especially with regard to the appointment and posting of judges. 2, provide with the assistance of the international community, the judiciary, with sufficient resources in order to enable the legal system to fulfill its function. 3, provide judges with decent living and working conditions to enable them maintain their independence and realize their full potential. And 4, incorporate in their legal systems universal principles establishing the independence of the judiciary, especially with regard to security of tenure. As against these international, regional, and domestic standards, Uganda faces a number of challenges related to constitutionalism and the rule of law in the context of administration of justice. Intimidation and disrespect of the judicial branch. In the first place, there remains significant intimidation and disrespect of the judiciary and judicial officers. One of the ways this has manifested has been in terms of the defiance of court orders by government officials. I'll only cite a few examples in this regard. In June 2004, following the Constitutional Court's finding that the Referendum Political Systems Act 2000 was invalid, the head of state on national television informed the country that the judiciary essentially had no significant role to play in the affairs of state, noting that the major work for judges is to settle chicken and goat theft cases, but not determining the country's destiny. In addition, in November 2005, a paramilitary group invaded the precincts of the High Court and prohibited the release of suspects who had been granted bail by Justice Edmund Logaisi. This would recur on 1st March 2007. On that day, after the grant of bail to suspected rebels by the High Court of Uganda, a group of armed men, presumably belonging to a security forces unit known as the Black Mambas, invaded these very grounds. After surrounding the precincts of the court, they undertook an operation which frustrated the bail granted to suspects and prohibited their release as per the court order. Later, in November 2013, during proceedings to impeach the Lord Mayor, the Honorable Elias Lukwago, the line minister, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, opted to proceed with a meeting called for the purpose, notwithstanding a court order forbidding the same. Indeed, on that occasion, the advocate who attempted to deliver the order was severely assaulted by police who had formed a fortress around the meeting venue. In 2016, on 10th August to be precise, a mob appears to have been immobilized to prevent efforts to institute a private prosecution under the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act against then Inspector General of Police, General Kare Kaihura. The mob threatened lawyers at the Chief Magistrate's Court in Makindye, forcing them to seek sanctuary in the chambers of the then Chief Magistrate, Richard Mafari, now deceased. Perhaps most recently, this disrespect has been expressed in a July 2018 speech by the head of state following the decision rendered by the Constitutional Court in the age limit petition, in which he said that the judges are not the ones in charge of the country, and that the NRM MPs and the people could make the necessary constitutional reforms, judges or no judges. Suffocation and disempowerment of the judiciary through chronic underfunding. At the same time, intimidation and disrespect of the judiciary aside, there is an even more insidious pattern of disempowerment of the judiciary through denying it any meaningful operational funds. They have been highlighted on several occasions by various stakeholders, both from within and outside the judiciary, over a long period of time. For instance, during celebrations to open the new law year 2015-2016, the then acting Chief Justice Stephen Kavuma noted that the state resource allocation of the judiciary was grossly insufficient. According to that address, I quote, while the executive and parliament got 95% and 4.4% share of the national budget, in the financial year 2013-2014, respectively, the judiciary got a miserable 0.6% share to cater for all its financial needs in terms of salaries and wages, capital development, and recurrent expense. The funds provided would not meet even half of the basic needs of the institution. We are told to give examples. The important aspect of urgent needs like court sessions, sufficient funding, land justice, and for payment of rent and utilities, building of new courts, and investigating in technology and anti-corruption efforts could not be adequately funded because of the limited resources. End of quote. The inevitable result of this underfunding is evident all around the country in terms of the human and other resources available for justice delivery. According to a report by Parliament Watch Uganda, 53% of court houses throughout the country are housed in judiciary-owned buildings, while the rest of the courtrooms are either rented premises or building of local administration in the respective districts. The Court of Appeal in Kampala is renting a building where there is a bar on one floor, a bank on another, and a restaurant on the other. The security of judicial officers in such circumstances cannot be guaranteed. The effects of these two-pronged challenges to the administration of justice are manifest. The intimidation and underfunding of the judiciary leads to a less effective, less motivated, and less robust judicial branch. In this regard, the numbers in terms of unresolved cases or case backlog speak for themselves. According to the 2015 National Court Case Census, for example, the case backlog amounted to 114,809 cases. Of these, about 1 in 4 had been pending for more than 10 years. This number of unresolved cases had risen to more than 155,400 as of 31st January 2017, according to a committee set up to address this challenge. Although there are measures the judiciary can take internally to mitigate this fundamental malaise, it is clear that the core cause of this situation is a fundamental and structural one, to do with facilitation of the judicial branch, and which ultimately must be resolved at that level. As Chief Justice Bat Katurebo observed at the opening of the present lawyer, the judiciary's effort to wipe out backlog have been severely affected by a critical shortage of judicial officers and prosecutors, and logistical challenges and underfunding of the courts. Indeed, in March 2016, the ceiling of the Court of Appeal premises collapsed. Luckily, no litigants or judicial officers were injured. However, the roof caving in, literally, is a most symbolic reminder of the dire state of the judiciary in Uganda today. With some concluding thoughts, I will add this address with a few, I will end this address with a few reflections as to what we must individually and collectively do if we are to truly respect and live up to the legacy of Benedicto Kiwanuka. First, in light of the continuing challenges to constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda, the enduring legacy of Benedicto Kiwanuka must be that there must be an end to impunity in our country by state actors. And this seems to be as much a problem today as it has been in the past, with maybe variations of extent. Second, in the fight against impunity, the judiciary and its courts play a cardinal role in concert with the other players in the criminal justice system of the country. For the judiciary to play its true role, there are prerequisites that it must possess that will attract public confidence and trust that the judiciary can be up to the task. First, first of all, it must be manned not by one Benedicto Kiwanuka, but many Kiwanukas. The integrity of the men and women who sit in our courts as judges and magistrates must be unquestionable. These men and women must also possess sound learning. These qualities were evidently in ample supply in Benedicto Kiwanuka. The men and women that preside over our courts must display courage and fortitude to speak the truth to power at all times through their judicial decisions and through their other appropriate forum. They must do this even though they know that the powers that be will no doubt be annoyed by such decisions and will, at the very least, deride them with all sorts of name-calling. As the example of Kiwanuka demonstrates, Ugandan judges in the past have not been found wanting when truly tested in this regard. I am gratified also that we have recent examples of robust responses to executive overreach. For example, after the vigilante attack on the Chief Magistrate's Court in August 2016, the Chief Justice Benedicto firmly pointed out to the state and the population that the rule of law had to be followed if anarchy was to be avoided. The judiciary should continue to be this bold if it is to struggle through the current and future hazardous times that lie ahead. Third, I think it is time the role of the Chief Justice as a vital part of the Judicial Service Commission was reconsidered. It will be recalled that under the 1967 Constitution, this Chief Justice headed the Judicial Service Commission and was therefore able to play a significant role in the appointment and discipline of judicial officers. And this is not hearsay to me, it is first-hand. The result, terms of Article 146 of the 1995 Constitution, the result is a situation where all three senior members of the judiciary, the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and the Principal Judge, who head the judiciary, the Court of Appeal, and the High Court, respectively, have no role in ensuring that only fit and proper persons are appointed to and remain on the bench. This is an anomaly which should be urgently corrected to achieve a truly functional and effective judiciary. Fourth, the judiciary should be respected by all institutions of the executive branch, including the Directorate of Public Prosecution, the police force, the prison services, and all other security agencies. Ideally, before a person is charged with an offense, there should be credible evidence to support the charge. Indeed, in many cases, this time-honored practice is respected. However, increasingly, there is a group of persons who are arrested first and charged in different courts, and investigations commence thereafter. These charges often relate or have their source in the political differences of the day. Reports of torture of these suspects are commonplace. This divergence in the handling of treatment of suspected offenders who break the law is at the heart of the problem that our nation faces today and must be addressed without delay. Fifth, although my address today is primarily a concern with the judiciary, the independence and effectiveness of the judiciary is linked to the health and well-being of the other branches of government, including the Parliament. The Parliament position as the branch of government responsible for legislation and oversight over the two other branches of government should be respected and protected. The role and function of Parliament in this regard should not be interfered with, whether through intimidation, underfunding, or other unlawful or illegitimate means. The invasion of Parliament by armed personnel last year, for instance, was as egregious as violation of the sanctity of that chamber as were the armed intrusions into these very grounds, as I have described earlier. Parliament should be respected. At the same time, the Parliament too should respect and support the other branches of government, including the judiciary. Only in this way can we achieve the democratic government we committed ourselves to under the 1995 Constitution. As noted earlier, over the last 3 decades, we have seen what was heralded as the fresh start for the nation. A new constitution was promulgated, including a Bill of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms that were to inure to those that live in this land. All institutions were revamped and new institutions were created to foster a new Uganda. All manners of reforms were planned and executed. We are filled with hope. I had the privilege, as you know, to head the judiciary of Uganda for part of this period. And I must take responsibility for my part in all this. However, it has been 18 years since I retired. My successor too retired. And now it is Chief Justice Patrick Kiwanuka's responsibility to take the judiciary forward. In this regard, he will require the support of all judicial officers and support staff. If a judicial officer fails or refuses to deliver a judgment in time, the judiciary as a whole is diminished. Similarly, where staff in the registries hide or conveniently lose files, the delivery of justice is compromised. The judiciary, with the Chief Justice at its help and at its guide, should be united in a commitment to fulfilling the Constitution promise of doing justice to all manner of persons without fear or favor. In that way, we shall be able to truly honor and exemplify the rich legacy of the late Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All these people you are seeing standing are here to say thank you, and thank you again. Thank you, Chief Justice Emeritus. May I now invite Principal Judge Emeritus, Justice Ogola, to come forward and deliver a befitting tribute to Chief Justice Emeritus.
The lame walk, the bruised heal, the exiles return. That's good news. Lest you think I'm talking about Bobby Wine, banish the thought. I'm talking about the times and the experiences that Ben Kiwanuka experienced day in and day out in the old dark days of Idi Amin. Permit me to read some verses that I composed quickly this morning to honor and to memorialize Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka. It's been so rushed that I don't even know myself what I should give the title to this poem. Perhaps a life and a legacy. When some bowed their knee, he stood erect against tyranny. When many lowered their voice into a whisper, he raised his against injustice. When others cowered down in disgrace, he rose up a colossus to oppose suppression. When, in the face of inordinate odds of torture, multitudes lowered their brow to the ground, he raised his head high to accost a virulent and vulgar dictatorship. For all these and more, they cut his neck in the blood-soaked butchery of brutality. A sacrifice to make at the bloodthirsty altar of iniquity. But behold, his stout soul lives on. His lively spirit, like a refreshing whiff of breath, cascades through the stellar firmament of the chronicles of the law. His name, Benedicto Kiwanuka, chief priest of the sacred sanctuary of justice.
Thank you, my Lord Justice Ogora Munange. Yes, they're all his names. And as poetic as what he has been saying. My Lord, the Chief Justice, I'd like now to invite you to come forward and request His Excellency the Vice President to address us.
Your Excellency, it's my singular duty and honor to invite you to address the audience. Your Excellency.
His Lordship, the Chief Justice of Uganda, their Lordships, the judges of the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal and the High Court, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, ladies and gentlemen, you are most welcome. I'm here just to represent His Excellency the President of Uganda, who had originally planned to be present with you at this occasion. But because of unforeseen commitments, he has been unable to come. Therefore, delegate me representing him on this occasion. His Excellency the President had prepared his 19-page statement, which he has just passed to me to present it to you on his behalf. Permit me to proceed. I greet you and congratulate you all for playing your part in the recovery of Uganda from that low level of the 21st of September 1972, when our elder, Benedicto Kiwanuka, was dragged from the court and murdered. Ben Kiwanuka was not the only person killed. Of course, earlier on or later, people like Basilio Batalingaya, Frank Kalimuzo, Father Kigundu, James Ochoa, Balunywa, Alexander Latim, Jim Obon, the Honorable Martin Okero MV from the Navy area, Picho Ali, Wapea, Alex Ojera, Bananula, Lucky Katundu, Mtundu Meile, Mtembea, Kasada, Bigiti, Hassan, the policeman, Wawuyo, the CID, man, etc. These were mainly members of the colonial and post-colonial Ugandan elite. All these killings were extrajudicial outside the law. In Obote too, these extrajudicial killings were cascaded downwards to the ordinary people, the village people. That is how we have 32 mass graves in the Duero Triangle, each one with about 2,000 skulls for one. Those form a total of 70,000. If you include the bodies that were buried by the relatives, the total comes to an estimate of 300,000 Ugandans killed extrajudicially in Obote. Only a few days ago, I observed a double anniversary. On the 15th of September, my family celebrated my 74th birthday. However, on the very morning of 15th of September 1972, I was part of an effort of planning to attack the hated regime of Idi Amin. The previous day, the 14th of September 1972, when I was one day short of my 28th birthday, I was returning from a night operation of infiltrating guns into Uganda through the Kakunyu, Yabatula, Nzugeri border. That is where I found a Tanzanian intelligence Land Rover waiting for me, and I was rushed to the Bukoba State Lodge, where the Minister of Defense, Sokoine, briefed me on the planned attack that was supposed to commence during the night of the 14th. The attack delayed, and it was eventually took place on 17th of September 1972. That attack, which I have detailed in my book called Sowing the Mustard Seed, failed because it had been badly planned. Yet it is that attack that the crude and uninformed Idi Amin and his group used to launch a new wave of killings, including the killing of Mzee Benedicto Kiwanuka. There had been earlier waves of killings that involved the people like Wawuyo, Hassan, Batalingaya, Southern Ovacholi, and Nelange soldiers and officers. It was such a wastage of human life. I'm very proud that our liberation groups of RONASA, the NRM, and the UPDF today decisively played leading roles between 1971 and today. In ending this hemorrhage of human life and wastage of development time, some challenges like the recent murders notwithstanding. Regarding the recent murders, some of which are already solved in the suspects are already before the courts, and those not before the courts are known. I recently told the religious leaders that came to see me that in the last 58 years of my dealing with the problems of Uganda, this may be some of the easiest to solve. Why? It is because we have much more capacity to respond to such challenges than we ever had in the past. Moreover, these are very shallow plans of thinking that you can sustainably use the concealment in the town population and the big number of vehicles and pikipikis in order to kill Ugandans, and that the security forces will not know in the end. It is just a matter of time, and of course, efforts as far as UPDF and other security agencies are concerned. Yes, some of our security agencies have been infiltrated by Kawukumi, Mungwe, Banana. These are being weeded out and will be replaced by healthy beings that are trained. Have you seen the large numbers of HSC graduates that throng the recruitment centers when UPDF and police etc. are carrying out recruitment exercise? The fools in the security forces that squander their chances have only themselves to blame. Uganda will move on. Nevertheless, it is so annoying to see the wastage of innocent life like the ones of Abiriga, Kirumira, Kajezi, Kawesi, the Sheikhs, Magala, etc. The UPDF, the NRM, and other security forces and the people of Uganda will avenge their deaths like we avenged the death of Benedicto Kiwanuka. After 14 years of armed preparation or struggle, the FRONASA, NRA, and the people of Uganda finally defeated the direct and the indirect killers of Benedicto Kiwanuka in both 1979 and 1986. I was able to visit his widow, Maxensia, at Nated, and render whatever little assistance I could spare at that time. Therefore, I'm happy and proud that the killers of Kiwanuka toiled in vain, and what they did led their ruin. They certainly did not benefit from their criminality. They harvested what they sowed. I'm therefore here to represent the tradition of the freedom fighters of Uganda, the avengers of not only Benedicto Kiwanuka, but of the 800,000 Ugandans that perished extrajudicially between 1966 and 1986. During the time of the resistance, the freedom fighters were working mainly with the masses. The NRA, the Resistance Council, and population, but also with some intellectuals, especially in the external committee in Nairobi and London. We, in the armed struggle, were clear from the beginning that the collapse that had happened soon after independence was not accidental. It was systematic, emanating from pseudo-ideology about society. World events and economic organization, we carried out diagnosis of the pre-colonial societies of Africa, but concentrating on our area. The societies of this area during the time of colonialism and during the brief post-colonial period before the collapse. In the case of Uganda, the post-colonial period before collapse was only 8 years, 1962 to 1970. This collapse, by the way, did not only happen in Uganda. It happened in so many African countries, either wholly or partially. After a deep study was identified four principles and 10 strategic backnets as the prescription for the Uganda society and the neighboring countries that have been in crisis for the last 500 years. These principles are patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. The strategic bottlenecks are ideological disorientation. The main manifestation of the ideological disorientation is the optimistic misuse of identity at the expense of genuine interest of the people. Such genuine interest should always answer the question, who will guarantee my prosperity? Is it the members of my tribe or my religious sect that will do so? Or is it the members of other communities who will buy my milk, my beef, my coffee, my banana, or tea? Ideological disorientation only emphasizes identity and eclipses interest, or even acts against the interest of people. This generates the sectarianism of tribe or religion you have seen causing so much damage. As a consequence of number one above, many African countries end up with weak states, weak armies, civil services, etc. Because they are not based on merit or are not ideologically oriented with the right attitude. Third, the underdevelopment of human resources, lack of education, lack of skills, and poor health of African population. Fourth, underdevelopment, infrastructure, no electricity, no water. Modern roads, modern levees, no ICT backbone, no piped water, etc. This makes costs of production in the economy go up and cannot, therefore, attract investment so as to expand production and create jobs. Five, as a consequence of number four above, there is no industrialization, and therefore Africa has continued to suffer hemorrhage through the loss of money and jobs, being a donor to other continents by continuing to export raw materials where we get only 10% of the value of our products, coffee, cotton, minerals, timber, etc. Six,
The problem of fragmented African market on account of colonialism. The 53 former colonies, the modern African states, are individually too small markets to attract, retain investment and cause them to thrive. China, which started liberalizing and opening up in 1978, China started by participating in the UN system in 1988, in 1982, has since attracted a total of enterprises worth US dollars 2.6 trillion. The whole of Africa in that same period has only attracted enterprises worth US dollars 0.65 trillion. China is still a communist country, while most of Africa is now democratic and operating their own market-led economy. What is the problem? One of them is fragmented market. The other bottlenecks also play a role in this encouraging skill investment. The other good examples are poor infrastructure and the non-skilled workforce. Fortunately, we have done a good job on this by creating ECOWAS, EPSC, MESA, and etc. We are aiming at the common market of all Africa. Unfortunately, some of actors continue to allow non-tariff barriers, yet the growing purchase power of Africa would have attracted investment if African market was really integrated. The underdeveloped services sector, tourism, hotels, banking, insurance, the underdevelopment of agriculture, non-complete commercialization of agriculture, still a lot of subsistence agriculture, 68% in the case of Uganda, non-irrigation, low use of fertilizer, poor disease control, poor soil conservation, poor seeds and breeding stock, etc. The population in the agricultural sector has therefore no money. Their purchasing power is low. 9. In the 1960s and 1970s, there was the mistake on our part of nationalizing private sector assets, banks, shops, farms, etc. The interference with the private sector by policy or by corruption has also been another bottleneck. The private sector is the most inefficient engine of growth. 10th, suppression of democracy in the past has also been another bottleneck. We did not only distill these principles and identify the bottlenecks, but struggled for them politically in the population. The old political and social forces still have been at their positions of sectarianism in politics, self-service to foreign interests, which they presented to public either openly or overtly. However, repeatedly over since the Constitutional Assembly in 1994, the public, by population vote, stands with the position of NRM. Weaknesses in the civilian leaders of NRM notwithstanding. We, however, continue to have problems with the professional organs of state. The judiciary and the civil servants, especially because they never bother to understand and integrate their philosophy and practice the four principles and solution to the 10 strategic bottlenecks. These principles and solutions to the bottlenecks are not partisan, as some people say. They are dialectical in historical terms, Should Africa be free? Should it be subservient to foreign interests? Should Africa be united? Should it be bedeviled by sectarianism or religion or tribe? Should Africa transform into middle-class, skilled working society like Europe has done in the last 600 years? Or should it continue as the area of enclave economics dominated by the pre-capitalist society living in a subsistence economy? Should we emphasize Pan-Africanism or should we emphasize Pan-Africanism? The NRM struggled and constitutionalized these principles. Article 1 says that all power belongs to the people of Uganda. It did not say that some of the powers belong to the foreign-funded NGOs or anything like that. That is what the NRM holds as a cross sub-pact. And all the other considerations should be subordinated to this. The NRM has shown all of you that Uganda can develop more education, bigger, healthier population, more tarmac roads, more electricity, bigger economy, greater security, etc., in spite of the very low base we started with. I therefore invite the lawyers, the judges, and civil servants to seriously dialogue with the freedom fighters about the strategic direction of Uganda and Africa. Strategic, please do not just talk. The NRM always means what it says and says what it means. Within the political class, we of course also have no problem of careerism. People who join politics as a source of jobs, not in order to pursue the cause of emancipation and strengthening of Africa that we are struggling with. This lack of convergence on strategic and even practical issues reflects itself in, for instance, the issues of bail. Why should it be a priority for the judiciary to give bail to people accused and remanded for murder, rape, rioting, and destroying property? Yes, the suspected criminals have rights, but the society and the victim also have rights. The Kidawari groups that killed people on New Year's Day in Masaka had been given bail by the courts. Fortunately, through hard work of security forces, they were rearrested, and eventually Kidawari was killed trying to rape a girl, Nachambade, or even possibly kill her afterwards. I propose that the freedom fighters, the population, the lawyers, the judges, the civil servants, the religious leaders, and the cultural leaders harmonize on the strategic and tactical issues. Movement forward will be fast. I thank you. May Benedicto Kiwanuka, the soul, bless you down with
Thank His Excellency Vice President for addressing us. Your Excellency, you may please sit. Please sit. We have the last part of the program for this day, and that will be the unveiling of the bust, the late Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka. But before we do that, we've been seated here since morning, so we're going to listen to a ceremonial tune from the prison's band. And after that, Your Excellency will request you to perform a small function here before we move to the unveiling of the bust. Prison's band, please. Thank you, the prisoners. Your Excellency, the Vice President, we'd like to request you, accompanied by the Honorable the Chief Justice, the Honorable the Deputy Chief Justice, and the Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, to come just in front here so that we're able to hand over portraits to the family and a number of people. Of the late Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka. Manango Bugaro. Ambassador Kiwanuka, if you can display it for the public to see. Very good, thank you. Okay, may I now request the family to one seat. The next recipient is Chief Justice Samuel William Wako Wamboze, the one who delivered the guest and inaugural lecture. If you could move a bit fast. Right. My Lord CJ, if you could. There it is, there it is. Very beautiful, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right, thank you. Our next recipient is Dr. Paulo Kawanga Semogerere. He's receiving it. He was a friend. He took over the leadership of the Democratic Party from the late Benedicto Kiwanuka. Dr. Paul Kawanga Semogerere, if you could come accompany your son, Sakarol Semogerere, and colleague in the Democratic Party, and the Lord Mayor. Okay, you're done. Thank you so much. Now, may I know invite? Okay. May I now invite the Honorable, the Principal Judge, Dr. Yerokam Bamwine, to come and receive the official portrait on behalf of the judiciary. Justice Bamwine. Thank you, Your Excellency, the Vice President.
Honorable Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka was unveiled on the 21st September 2018 by General President of the Republic of Uganda.
Photograph and the representatives in Uganda Society, represented by the President and the Vice President.
The next group.
President, would like to thank you for performing the highlight of today's function. The bus that you have unveiled will be a permanent reminder of the work, the contributions, achievements, and the legacy of the late Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka. Thank Justice Alphonse Owindolo, who has been chair of the organizing committee for putting together a very good function. He was assisted by Justice Remy Kasule, myself, Gadenya Paul, Ms. Esther Namayo, Mr. Moata, Mr. Adole Chibombi, PS, Ms. Susan Abinyo, Mr. Vincent Mugabo, Mr. Phil Kodoki, Mr. Godfrey Kawesa Wezi, the President of Uganda Judicial Officers Association, Mr. Feston Senga, the Registrar, Ms. Sarah Ranga, who has been the co-MC, Engineer Christopher Ball, Gahari Patrick, Mr. Solomon Mwita, who directed the documentary, Senior, this what, SP Nachin Jacqueline, the DPC here, Mr. Oundo Banan, who represented the Law Society on the committee. And last but not least, Mr. Katumba Anthony, Protocol Officer, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency Vice President, that is the team that has been able to put together this function. May I now request all of you to stand up for the Thank you very much. Your Excellency the Vice President, there is a special request that you take a photograph with all the present and retired judges in front of the bust. And then there will be representatives of the Uganda Law Society, represented by the current president and the past presidents. And if time permits, you take one with the organizing committee for the function.
Yes, I think I was starting. Today is a special day in the history of the legal profession at all levels: judicial academia, legal academia, judicial practice, and legal practice. We are here today to celebrate the life of an icon in judicial circles. That's the late Benedicto Kiwanuka, Chief Justice of Uganda, who was murdered by dictator Idi Amin. He stood for human rights, he stood for rule of law. The celebration is opportune in the sense that it comes at a time where the School of Law in Makerere is also celebrating 50 years of existence. As we celebrate 50 years of existence as a school, we are celebrating rule of law. We are celebrating our contribution to promoting human rights, rule of law and democracy in this country. So reviewing the achievements of the late Chief Justice properly ties in with what the school has done. So we think the two functions are linked. We are celebrating 50 years as a school under the theme building, celebrating 50 years of success and building for the future. One of the core functions of School of Law is to train legal professionals that are going to promote the rule of law and human rights. We believe that every law student should stand for the legacy that the late Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka stood for. And this we've tried for the last 50 years, but of course with challenges here and there. As we start 50 years as a school, we are going to strive as much as possible to ensure that we build the training of lawyers in Makerere, the training of lawyers in Uganda on the foundation of rule of law.